All right. Good evening or good morning, wherever you are in the world. I'm Suloshini, and I'll be moderating the third Google Hangout session of the second annual International Women's Day edition of our Read for Pixels campaign. Through Read for Pixels, the Pixel Project is collaborating with 11 award-winning best-selling female authors to raise awareness about violence against women and to raise funds towards the Celebrity Male Role Model Pixel Reveal campaign, which aims to raise $1 million to be shared between the USA's National Coalition Against Domestic Violence and the Pixel Project to keep their efforts to end violence against women alive and kicking. We'll be telling you more about the Read for Pixels fundraiser, which has lots and lots and lots of exclusive goodies, author goodies a little later in the session. And you can find out more about the Pixel Project. All you have to do is visit www.thepixelproject.net. Today, we have an extra special guest. She's one of my favorite authors and has also been part of our previous Read for Pixels campaign. Please join me in welcoming best-selling author of The Women of the Other World and Canesville series, Kelley Armstrong. Hi, Kelley.
Hello.
Kelley has also very generously donated two very special treats to the stash of author goodies we have up as perks for donors at the Read for Pixels Indiegogo fundraising page. These goodies include a signed and personalized limited edition print of Brazen, which is leather bound, with a full-color dust jacket and features 6 full-color illustrations by Xavier Domarie, including 2 which are not in the trade edition, as well as full-color end sheets. Similarly, we also have a signed and personalized limited print of Driven, basically the same, which is leather-bound, full-color dust jacket, features 6 full-color illustrations, as well as full-color end sheets. So please do give generously, as all funds go towards the Pixel Project Celebrity Male Role Model Pixel Reveal campaign to help end violence against women. So today Kelley will be doing a live reading on an excerpt of her latest book, City of the Lost. Before we start our live reading, I'd just like to put a little bit of a trigger warning. There will be strong language in this book, in this reading, and it may be triggering to some survivors. But before we start, we'll just say hello to Kelley and let Kelley say a few words. Kelley?
Hello. Okay, so you've got me here at home, as you can tell. One of the rare times you'll see me wearing glasses. It is nighttime here, so it's time for me to settle in. What I'm reading from today is City of the Lost. I'm going to be reading chapter 2. The chapter 1 sees the main character in a therapist's office. She's confessing to something, and then she goes and tells what happened 12 years earlier. So in order to properly do this, I have to read the last paragraph of that prologue in the present, and then I'll flip to chapter 2.
Right.
I'd gone to a bar that night with my boyfriend, I say. It was supposed to be a dare, but he spent the evening doing business in the back corner. That's what he called it, doing business, which sounds like he was dealing coke in some dive bar. We were actually in the university pub, him selling vitamin R and bennies to kids who wanted to make it through exam week. Chapter 2. Blaine and I sat at a back table, side by side, waiting for customers. His fingers stroked the inside of my thigh. Almost done. And then he grinned over at me. Pizza? Your place? Only if we get enough for Diana. He made a face. It's Friday night, Casey. Shouldn't your roommate have a date or something? No, sorry. Actually, she was out with college friends. I just wasn't telling Blaine that. We hadn't had sex yet. I held him off by saying I was a virgin. That was a lie. I was just picky. Blaine was my walk on the wild side. I was a police recruit playing bad girl, which was as lame as his attempt to play drug lord. On a scale of bad boys, Blaine ranked about a 2. Oh, sure, he claimed he was connected. His grandfather being some Montreal mobster whose name I couldn't even find with an internet search. More likely, the old guy played bookie at his senior's home. Blaine's father certainly wasn't mobbed up. He was a pharmacist, which is how Blaine got his stuff. Blaine himself was pre-med. He didn't even sample his merchandise. That night, he nursed 1 beer for 2 hours. Me, I drank Coke, Diet Coke. Yep, we were hardcore. A last customer sidled over, a kid barely old enough to be in university. Blaine sold him the last of his stash. Then he gulped his beer, put his arm around my shoulders, and led me from the pub. I couldn't roll my eyes at his swagger, but I found it oddly charming. While I might not have been ready to jump into bed with Blaine, I did like him. He was a messed up rich kid, and I could relate to that. Any chance of getting Diana out of your apartment? He asked. Even if there was, the answer is no. He only shrugged with a smile that was half, I'll change your mind soon, and half genuine acceptance. Another reason why I wasn't ready to write him off as a failed dating experiment. He never pushed too hard, accepting my refusals good-naturedly. I wasn't familiar with the campus area. I was attending the provincial police college outside the city and spending weekends with Diana, a high school friend who went to the local community college. Neither of us was from here. So when Blaine insisted that a dark alley was a shortcut to the pizza place, I didn't question it. Mostly because I was fine what he had planned. A make-out pit stop designed to change my mind about getting Diana out of our apartment. We were going at it hard and heavy when I heard the click of a gun. I gasped and pushed Blaine back. He looked up and jumped away, leaving me with a 9mm pointed at my cheek. I only have $50, Blaine lied. The rest was stuffed in his sock. She has some jewelry. Take that and the 50. Do we look like muggers, Sartori? As the gun lowered, I saw the guy holding it. Early 20s, dark blonde hair, leather jacket. No obvious gang markings, but that's what this looked like. 4 young guys, 1 with a gun, 3 with knives. I couldn't fight them. I didn't have a weapon, and martial arts doesn't work well against 4 armed attackers. Instead, I committed their faces to memory and noted distinguishing features for the police report. Does the old man know you're dealing? The lead guy asked. I don't know what, Blaine began. What I'm talking about? That you're Leo Sartori's grandkid? Or that you were dealing on our turf? Blaine bleated denials. One of the guys pinned him against the wall while another patted him down. They took a small plastic bag with a few leftover pills from one sock and a wad of cash from the other. Okay, Blaine said, so we're done now? You think we want your money? The leader bore down on him. You're dealing on our turf, college boy. Considering who you are, I'm going to take this as a declaration of war. No, my grandfather doesn't. A clatter from the far end of the alley. Just a cat leaping from a garbage bin, but it was enough to startle the guy with the gun. I lunged, caught him by the wrist, and twisted, hearing the gun thump to the ground as I said, grab it! And Blaine wasn't there to grab it. He was tearing down the alley. One of the other thugs was already scooping up the gun, and I was wrenching their leader's arm into a hold, but I knew it wouldn't do any good. The guy with the gun jabbed the barrel against my forehead and roared, stop! I didn't even have time to do that before the other 2 slammed me into the wall. The leader took back his gun and advanced on me. Seems we know who's got the balls in your relationship, he said. The pretty little China doll. Your boyfriend's gone, sweetie. Left you to take his punishment. He looked me up and down. A little too college girl for my tastes, but I'm flexible. I thought he was joking or bluffing. I knew my statistics. I faced more danger of sexual assault from an acquaintance or a boyfriend. Look, I said, whatever beef you have with Blaine, it has nothing to do with me. I've got $20 in my wallet and my necklace is gold. We'll take whatever we want, sweetie. I tugged my bag off my shoulder. Okay, here's my purse. There's a cell phone. He stepped closer. We'll take whatever we want. His voice had hardened, but I still didn't think I'm in danger. I knew how muggings worked. Just stay calm and hand over my belongings. I held out my purse. He grabbed it by the strap and tossed it aside. Then he grabbed me, one arm going to my throat, the other to my breast, shoving me against the wall. There was a split second of shock as I hit the bricks hard. And then, I don't know what happened then. To this day, I cannot remember the thoughts that went through my brain. I don't think there were any. I felt his hands on my throat and on my breast, and I reacted. My knee connected with his groin. I twisted toward the guy standing beside us, my fingers wrapped around his wrist. I grabbed his switchblade as it fell, and I twisted again, my arm swinging down. I stabbed the leader in the upper thigh as he was still falling back, moaning from the knee to the groin. Afterward, I would piece it together and understand how it happened, how a response that seemed almost surreal was, in fact, very predictable. When the leader grabbed me with both hands, I knew he was no longer armed, so I reacted, if not with forethought, at least with foreknowledge. Yet it was the lack of forethought that was my undoing. I had stabbed the leader, and there were 3 other guys right there. One hit me in the gut. Another plowed his fist into my jaw. A third wrenched my arm so hard I screamed as my shoulder dislocated. He got the knife away from me easily after that. Someone kicked me in the back of the knees, and I went down, and as soon as I did, boots slammed me from all sides, punctuated by grunts and curses of rage. I heard the leader say, "You think you're tough, little girl? I'll show you tough." And then the beating began in earnest. I woke in a hospital 4 days later as my mother and the doctor discussed the possibility of pulling the plug. I'd like to believe that somewhere in that dark world of my battered brain, I heard them and came back like a prize fighter rising as the ref counts down. But it was probably just coincidence. I'd been found in that alley, left for dead, and rushed to the hospital, where I underwent emergency surgery to stop the internal bleeding. I had a dislocated shoulder, 5 fractured ribs, over 100 stitches for various lacerations, a severe concussion and intracranial hematoma, compound fracture of the left radius, severe fracture of the right tibia and fibula with permanent damage. I've recited that list to enough therapists that it has lost all emotional impact. I spent 6 weeks in that hospital learning to walk again, talk again, be Casey Duncan again. Except I never really was. Not the Casey Duncan I had been. There are 2 halves of my life, before and after. That is part of chapter 2, and after that, Casey goes and does something that's not too smart, and that's why she ends up at the therapist confessing 12 years later.
Thank you, Kelley. I know I'm really looking forward to reading City of the Lost. I'm just waiting to get the copy out next week. We will go into some of the question and answer sessions, and you'll be happy to know there are lots of questions that piled up. I think lots of people have entered questions to you today. But before that, we'll just do a quick run through here with some of our questions. We go with the start. In the City of the Lost, Casey, who survived a terrible rape and assault, is outstanding in her grit, her will to keep pushing on, and her capacity for compassion for others, even if it's delivered in her no-nonsense way. even as she's still dealing with the aftermath of the trauma of the attack. Many books and movies use rape as a shorthand for female suffering or reduce the female to the reason for the male protagonist's suffering, or even just as gratuitous violence. How did you approach the topic in your handling of Casey as a character? Because you did a really great job at portraying her as a compelling human being with her own agendas.
Casey actually does not know if she was raped during that assault. It does go on right after that to discuss why, but basically she was so badly hurt that she doesn't know if they didn't do a test or what happened, but she doesn't actually know. So part of it is her dealing with the fact that she does not know if she was or wasn't, and does she want to know. At the time, the physical injuries were so bad that that's what the people have focused on. So it has left her in this strange place of not knowing. So for her, it's the physical assault that she still deals with. And yet it has made her much more aware of that in dealing with other women. And you get a lot of that in City of the Lost, how she feels towards the other women, her sympathies for them, her ability to put herself in their place as much as possible, and sometimes really struggle to put herself in their place, because she is a very no-nonsense character, but she's also very deeply sympathetic, but sometimes she does struggle to say, I'm not sure how somebody reacts in that way. And part of the book is her coming to terms with that.
Okay, thank you. That's a really interesting way of looking at it, and I'm actually really looking forward to reading the rest of the book. My next question for you is, it's not always easy portraying strong women in novels, especially women who own their sexuality, like Olivia or Eden in the Kingsville series, and of course the women of the other world, all the women of the other world. There are so many instances where women are stereotyped to be or act a certain way, and that's just because she's female. How do you work around that to create a strong female character, one who is in touch with her sexuality and one who is empowered enough to know and to claim her rights?
It is important for me because I do think that we do get a lot of media portrayals of the opposite, of the slut shaming, of the good girls don't, and certainly within my generation, that is how you grew up. This was something that boys wanted and not something that girls want, which is not the truth at all. And so I like in my books to show that, to show healthy relationships with women who know what they want and go after it, or are still learning what they want. Liv in Kingsville is a lot of fun because she is a much more modern young woman who knows exactly what she wants and has no problems going after it.
So how did you work around that whole stereotype and just go, well, I guess you just answered that. Sorry. So you just went, well, this is
for me, it is just showing them pursuing what they want, showing them enjoying healthy sexual relationships, and occasionally having to deal with those types of stereotypes for women who really do enjoy it.
All right. Thank you. As a novelist, how important, in your opinion, is it to have strong female characters, not just in novels, but in pop culture as a whole?
It is so important because now I have been asked since I started writing, how do you write strong female characters? And I honestly never understood the question. I write female characters. I write female characters and I write male characters, and they are a reflection of the people I see around me. And I think so often in some forms of the media, far more so in visual media, in movies and TV, we're seeing stereotypes rather than real women, because strength comes in so many different ways. Someone does not have to be physically strong to be strong. Just somebody who can endure things is very strong, and that is what I like to see portrayed more. I wish in TV and movies we're seeing more of it slowly, but I find it's definitely more prevalent in books.
And it's such a shame that we still have to ask, do you think it's important that there are strong female characters? But it's still relevant that we have to ask that.
It is. I mean, I swear almost every convention I go to has a panel on strong female characters and how to write strong female characters. And I'm going to start asking to not be put on those because it's how to write strong characters.
Okay.
Or just how to write characters. This idea that somehow writing strong female characters is a special talent is very odd to me.
I agree completely. I was actually reading an article by Rachel Kane, I think one of her blog posts, and she said, I will not be put on anymore.
I saw that, yeah.
And I thought, you know, she makes so much sense, but the fact that people still have to, we still define female characters and we have to define that they are strong female characters is an issue. So my next question is, do you think it's important for influential authors such as yourself, who are read all over the world, to make a conscious effort to include characters who are both male and female in your stories that show readers the importance of respecting women as equals and as human beings?
It definitely is. I mean, making sure that the right messages are going out and that nothing can be misinterpreted, because sometimes what I may intend may not be what somebody could interpret. So for issues of, say, consent, making it clear on the page that very clear consent has happened, even though I may know in my mind that they're in a relationship where, you know, that is okay. It has to be clear every time. And some of the times the things that we've seen in romance just aren't okay, and people are far more aware of that, and they're looking for that, which means that they're looking for a more clear indication that both characters have consented to whatever is going on.
Thank you. We have a few more questions that I've got, but I think what we can do is maybe get you to also answer some of the questions that some of the viewers have been asking. So we'll go with the first one, which is quite fun. If you had the opportunity to walk into one of your characters' lives for the day, who would you pick and why?
I think right now it would be Casey, just because I would love to visit Rockton for just one day, and preferably in the summer, not in the winter, because Rockton is in the Yukon. And yeah, the winters would be even worse than they are here, but summers in the Yukon are beautiful. So to walk into that town and see it would be great.
It's a good reason, I think.
Yeah.
So that was Jen Eng's question. So we'll go to another one by Cecilia Silva. Cecilia wants to know, what is the most challenging series you have written?
Most challenging one would be Darkness Rising, I would say. Darkness Rising is my second YA trilogy. It came after Darkest Powers, and it was that I wanted to tell the same basic plot line, which is kids discover they have supernatural powers and are part of a genetically modified experiment. The same basic plot line, but make it completely different. Different characters, different setting, different plot points. It really was a challenge to me to say, I've got these two groups of kids who've gone through the same thing and will meet meet up eventually, but how do I make those two stories so different?
All right. Now we'll go back to one of my questions. There's been an influx, sorry, I have strong female characters in the industry. There's been an influx of more capable and strong characters. I'm taking female out. Characters in the industry from sci-fi and fantasy and paranormal to YA. What are your thoughts on this? And did this influence you when you created your characters?
So I missed the first part. It cut out. There has been a...
No, I said there's been... My initial question was there's been an influx of more capable and strong female characters in the industry, but I'm going to say just capable and strong characters in the industry, from sci-fi and fantasy to paranormal and YA. So what are your thoughts on this? And did this influence you when you created your characters?
I will answer it from a female perspective because, yes, there certainly was a time when we just didn't see that. Whether it was romance, whether it was fantasy, certainly there were authors doing great work in that. But often you would look at those now and they almost have to be updated for a modern audience, which is great to see that people can look back on that and see problems with it. It didn't influence me so much as just, knowing when I'm writing that I want my characters to be strong in different ways. It would be very tempting to have every last character is really good at fighting. Every last woman is a kick-ass heroine. And that's just not realistic. Most of us can't throw a punch to save our lives. So showing different types of strength is important to me, and instead of just falling back on that, they're all really, really tough.
Right. And I like that. I think that's that's a good way to look at it. Just tough women in general. All right, so that's one. Now, obviously, I will ask you how you think authors like yourself, who have such a reach globally, can best support efforts to kick off social change to end violence against women.
It really is just keeping that in the conversation. I do know that sometimes violence against women can be used in the wrong way in fiction, and the wrong way is it's used just for trauma. It's just the most generic type of trauma possible. If you have a female character, how do you hurt her? You have her being assaulted. You have her being sexually assaulted primarily. You have her being raped. And so be careful not, I would not do that to any of my characters because then they would have to deal with it in the course of the series. So unless I wanted to deal with that in the course of that series, I wouldn't just throw it in there for that. And most authors are really good about that. But occasionally, yes, it is used sometimes as that sort of shorthand for how do we hurt a female character? How do we bring a female character lower? Somebody's going to rape her.
Yeah, and that seems to be the stereotypical cliched response to how do you damage the character? How do you make her...
Exactly. Female character, how do you damage her? Rape. Yes.
Let's rape her. Make it easier all around for everyone. And it's it feels like it's an easy escape route.
It is, and it's often not dealt with. I often see that where the character is raped and then comes right back, shortly after, and they're perfectly fine. That is possible, but it's extremely, extremely unlikely. What you're going to have to do is show the after effects, show them continuing to deal with that, and make that part of your story. And some authors have done an amazing job of that.
Yeah. All right, so we'll go to my last question before we go back to the other 5 you have waiting. you've been so incredibly supportive of our Read for Pixels campaign, as well as our anti-violence against women work as a whole. Why do you support the cause to end violence against women?
It's just such a big deal, and it's somewhat saddening that we have to keep talking about it. There are people who say everybody knows it's wrong, everybody knows not to do it, and then cases come up in the news that not only show that everyone does not know, but that people's reactions to it are so difficult. The reactions of blaming the victims. How did they react? What did they do? Did they tell somebody? Did they have anything in their past that makes their story suspect? We keep seeing this over and over again, and it just shows us that, unfortunately, we have to keep talking about it and have to keep saying, that's not okay, and the victims are victims. They are not somebody who has in any way brought it on themselves, anything that they have done, and any way that they react later. Some don't want to come forward, and that's completely understandable given what we've seen happen to them. So then to say that diminishes their experience because they won't come forward is just so problematic. We have to get to the point where people are comfortable coming forward and don't have to fear that they will be re-victimized by that.
Thank you, Kelley. And I think that's so important for people to know that there are people such as yourself you've got your little niche crowd, globally people read your books and go, you've got great characters, and obviously you're a strong supporter of ending violence against women. So I think for me personally, I think it's great that you've not just done this once, but twice. And we hope that you're going to continue doing it with us as long as the campaign goes on. So I'll go to the next question by Regina. She says, how do you balance telling a compelling story while tackling the issues of violence against women, sexism, and misogyny without coming across as preachy or heavy-handed?
Yeah, that is tough because people are very quick to see it as if you even mention it, you're being preachy, you're being didactic, and it really is to work it into the plot. How does it work into the plot? How does it work into the characters? What are they dealing with? What have they dealt with? How does it support the themes of the story you're telling? So you can bring those things up and just weave them into it in hopefully a way that brings awareness to it without seeming like you're trying to put forward an agenda.
All right. Hope that answers your question, right, Regina? We've got another one, just a very simple one by Damien B, asking if you'll be doing a signing for Forests of Ruin.
I don't know. I often do a local signing, usually in the Toronto area, before the book comes out. They haven't said anything so far, and I'm thinking that probably means not this time. Yes, I'm fine with missing it this time. We've done it for the last I don't know how many books. So yeah, I would probably instead ask, if they gave me the option, I would probably instead ask to do one for Betrayals, which is the fourth Canesville coming out in August.
All right. Yeah, there you go, Damien. Mickey Jones has a couple of questions. I think the first one is, have you read any others on the list? In particular, Martin Leviat's Calvin? Calvin and Max have something in common.
I have not. On which? So what is? Sorry. On which list? Does it say?
Oh, the YA Book Award list.
Okay, yeah. The Mass Truth is up. It was shortlisted for Canadian Library Association's YA book, and I have not read any of those on the list, which is on my to-do list now. Now that they've all been shortlisted. There was one, I think it's We're All Made of Molecules, that I've been wanting to read in particular. So now I have the extra bump to go ahead and do that.
All right. So this was actually the first question. Sorry, the one I just asked you, the second one. So this is the first one. Mickey said, "Thank you for being so accessible to your fans and for your generosity to worthy causes. Did you take fencing lessons as part of the research for Riley's character? And congrats on the Mass Truth making the CLA shortlist for 2016 YA Book Awards."
Yeah, I have taken fencing. I took fencing years ago. I often take one short course of all different things. So I have done fencing, I have done archery, I have done Aikido, I have done a whole bunch, and I take just enough that I can portray something relatively correct. I know what it feels like to actually do that, but I never go past that with the martial arts and the fencing, because I personally hate to hit people. So even in fencing, where you're supposed to, I would apologize every time I made a hit. So that's just really not good.
Kim Daly says, "It seems like you purposely try and succeed to make us love characters with even the most reviled professions. Tabloid journalist, fake spiritualist, jewel thief, dark witch, even professional hitman. Is this a writing challenge or about prejudice?"
It's definitely a writing challenge, and it is, whether it is profession or what they have done. So yes, I've had Hitwoman. I have in Canesville, you know, I have your worst case defense lawyer ever, you know, the most corrupt defense lawyer. But it's taking these characters and saying, can I at least make them, if not sympathetic, understandable? Or even Casey, because Casey has shot somebody, she has killed somebody, but can I make it so that the reader will put that aside and say, yes, I know this person did that, or they do this for a living, but I understand why, and I can move past it for the purposes of the book. It's a lot of fun doing that.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, Gabriel, I think how much he grows on you from book 1 to book 3 is amazing, until you kind of start rooting for him. By end of book 3, I was rooting for Gabriel. Like, come on, I mean, without giving any spoilers away, you know, I was like, I love Gabriel. So
that is fun.
It would be fun, just to kind of evolution of the character and how they grow on you as a reader, and you start going, well, I like this one better than that one.
So Gabriel over Ricky?
Well, it's a little difficult. I mean, Ricky is likable from the start, despite the fact that he's a biker in a gang, and it's still, you know, it's just so likable from the start, and you can see the pulls from both characters. So it's for me, I find it like, which is why I'm so happy that there's another 2 books coming out in the series. So the next question we've got from Jessica Campbell. With the rise of feminism and it reaching younger and younger audiences, do you think the publishing industry will take note of this by using female authors' full names instead of the initials to not devalue women's voices in adult fiction? It's a good question.
Yeah. Okay. So the use of initials, which I have done. I did that for middle grade, and it was partially to disguise me in a not really disguising me way, because it's K.L. Armstrong, so it's not exactly a great pen name, but it was partially for the same reason you have J.K. Rowling. And it is because at that age it is very difficult to, if you put a female name on it, will the boys pick it up? Now, I did agree to do that. In retrospect, I will say that I'm not sure that I still support that decision that I made. And it is because I now, having written middle grade and dealt with those audiences, my issue is, are we already at that age teaching boys that they don't want to read books by girls by putting on initials? We're not sort of pushing them further. We're not pushing them out of that comfort zone, because I have had so many boys who are shocked to hear that, yes, we are two women who wrote those middle grade books. I think if they were more accustomed to seeing female names on action books like what we wrote, maybe that would solve the problem. And instead, by going ahead and using initials, are we adding to it? Possibly.
And that's actually an interesting conundrum. If you look at history, most famous women authors have been using either pen names or initials. Like even the Bronte sisters, they went by Acton, Alice, and Charles, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it should, but then it's again the same discussion that comes, I think, with the whole, is the phrase strong female character still relevant? Because it's basically the same thing. And well, I think it's time to change, but that's just me, and I think everyone else who supports the fix
It is really tough, because what we find is women have no problem reading books written by men. Men are much more reluctant to pick up either a book written clearly by a woman or a book with a female main character. And often once they do, they're fine with it. I don't know what they actually expect they would get, but apparently they are not nearly as bad as they fear.
Well, that's one step forward. At least they pick it up, you know. I have one more question from Regina. She says, as a mom, what do you think parents can do to help stop violence against women and girls?
So yeah, as a mother, it is just to me, it's a matter of making it very clear from the start that this is not acceptable. If that comes up in any way in family discussions, whether it's a movie, a TV show that we'd watched together, if there is not the correct response, often you'll see the correct response, and then you can sort of support that with your kids and say, yes, it is so good that they reported that. It is so good that that guy was stopped from doing that. If they don't show the correct response, talk about that. What do you think was correct? And I find that at least with my sons, by this point, if they do hear anything in that vein, where they might hear a friend make a comment that is questionable, suspect, they are very quick to call them on it. They are both quite quick. I have overheard them in the house with friends calling them on it and saying, what do you mean? Why do you say that? At least challenging them on it. So that is good to hear.
Oh, and that makes you, you'd be really proud to hear that, though, I would think. You hear them say, like, oh, right, I've done a good job with these boys.
It is when it becomes natural, when it's not as if we took them aside and had a long talk. It's just what's been modeled for them that they come to understand that clearly that's not acceptable. And they don't really understand why anybody would think it is.
Great. So just to break down, we've got another 5 to 10 minutes of the Q&A because Kelley, you finished your reading a little bit early today.
I'm fast.
Earlier, yes, you are. You are fast. And so if everyone has more questions, Kelley, are you happy to take more questions?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. So we have
questions.
Please ask questions. So we've got three
questions, or else we have to make them up.
But don't worry, I still have a couple that I haven't asked, but I thought I'd give you guys a chance. But there's actually 3 questions that just came up, so everyone's really happy. I think that you've got more time to answer questions at the moment. So the first one is from Jen Dick. She says, your characters, though strong, are flawed and realistic, and their stories fit into such a wide range of genres. It's a pleasure to read the variety of your work. Are there any authors or book series whose characters you enjoy reading?
I can say, well, there are so many book series that I enjoy reading, and I always hate to name them because then I will leave somebody out. So I will give 2 books, and the one that really influenced me to create female characters who were both what you might call strong but also flawed was Anne of Green Gables. Because Anne really was the type of character that I hadn't seen at that time, where she was headstrong and she was smart, but she also got into trouble and made mistakes and learned from her mistakes. And it was that really fun, strong, flawed character that influenced me heavily with, I want to see more girls like that. And if I'm going to recommend a recent book that I really enjoyed, who I think has been on Reads for Pixels, and that is Rachel Vincent. Rachel Vincent's latest adult book was Menagerie. And it's just it's good for both the female characters and just really good urban fantasy with a very unique premise to it. I've seen a lot in urban fantasy and it's pretty hard to surprise me, but just really good and unique new world building there. The type of book that I can read and say, I wish I'd done that.
Okay, so we've got some of Kelley's favorite books. Not all, but just
not all. There's so many.
But yeah, I totally understand. I get what you mean when you talk about the Anne of Green Gables. I think that was my first foray into fiction as a kid, and I wanted to be Anne. You know, she was just the kind of girl that I think every girl wants to be. Even though she was the underdog, but she went against all odds, and she had a happy ever after that she created for herself, which was, for a 5-year-old to start reading that, I was like, wow, this is so fun. We have a couple more here for you. Do you ever get recognized? This is by Mason Malone. Sorry, just trying to select that question. Do you ever get recognized when out and about, other than at events? If so, what is your preference? To be approached or to be admired from a distance? I am more likely somebody will say to me at an event, oh, I've seen you here or I've seen you there. I do occasionally get approached, and I'm probably fine with that. I'm pretty laid back about it. I actually had to get my laptop keyboard replaced last week, and I went into the place and I
checked in, and I gave my name, and the guy's like, "We saw your tweet." Because I had tweeted saying that my laptop keyboard was dead and I had to go to the Genius Bar, and somebody on staff follows me on Twitter. So they all knew who I was, and that I was coming in with my laptop, which is fun, but also a little bit, you just have to be like, I was there in my like sweatpants. I had just come from exercising, so sweatpants and t-shirt, and yeah, it was not my best look at all.
Well, at least then they know that you're human, that you can look like a regular person. So that's always a plus point, I suppose.
Yeah.
So we've got another question from Regina. She says, geek culture in general, including science fiction and fantasy, has its critics saying that it's still too male-dominated, despite a rising number of well-respected and well-known female authors. What do you think needs to be done to make it more welcoming for women and girls?
I think certain areas of it are very welcoming. Obviously, paranormal, urban fantasy are female-dominated. But how seriously they're taken by the overall fantasy community? No, not at all. I have been. Some places are better than others, but I am accustomed to, in the early days when I would go to fantasy conventions, I would hear, "You don't really write this. You write romance." It's like, no, well, I do have romance in my books, but they're not romance novels. So I think we still get some of that, where there is sort of the women's corner of the fantasy world. And there certainly are women doing other things, but the women's corner being urban fantasy and young adult fantasy, and those are predominantly female. And then the other categories are still at least the books that you're most likely to hear about are the ones written by men. But I do think inroads are being made in that people are far more aware of that now, and they're noticing if somebody gives a list of, top 5 fantasy novels, people are looking to see, are any women even being included? When the awards come out, are any women being nominated? So they're a little more aware of that, which is good to see.
And yeah, that's actually a very interesting point, because I read a lot of urban fantasy, and I think, when I do talk about those books, people say, "Oh, well, it's romance, right? There's lots of romance and sex in it." And like, if you look at, let's take the high fantasy books, Lord of the Rings. Didn't Aragorn do everything because he wanted to win Arwen's hand at the end of the day? That's romance right there. But why is that just part of the story? But the moment it's a woman writing urban fantasy, you go, well, the rest of the story is just bits and pieces to finish it up, but it's actually all about the romance. And it just annoys me. I'm like, no, you can't have a double standard. So it's very frustrating. And I can imagine as an author how you feel. Like, no, that's not what it's about, right? So we've got just 2 more questions, and we will wrap up with that. And sorry guys, if you have more questions, you can always send them to us on the Hangout session, and we'll consolidate them for you. So we've just got these few questions, and we're going to be done with the Q&A. Sorry about that. We have one. While writing a book, have you ever changed or redirected a story?
I don't think I've ever not changed or redirected a story. Every story once I'm into it and I'm into the characters, I see much better ideas. The main victim in City of the Lost in the first draft didn't even exist. It was actually me going back and doing a major revision to the book by saying certain parts just really didn't work, and one thing was the victims, and I needed one that was more sympathetic because I had rather unsympathetic victims, and I needed one that readers could at least feel bad about dying. So it was going back and reconstructing that. And it's to, even with a finished book, go back and kind of carve it open and say, how can I reconstruct this to fix what I see are problems? More commonly, I see the problems as I'm writing, and then I can change it while I'm still mid-book. But I am constantly changing and revising, even in the finished draft.
Right. Have you ever heard the song by Imagine Dragon?
Okay, I lost part of that. Have I ever heard this song? Which song?
And if so, have you ever perfect song for Git?
Okay, you're cutting out for part of it. So it's something by Imagine Dragons.
It's a song called Demons.
This is the weirdest thing. Every time you say that title, your voice just like conks out. So now I just keep missing that one thing.
Sorry. I'll try it one more time. Sorry. Have you ever heard the song by Imagine Dragons?
This is just the weirdest thing. Just that title. I can hear you say, "Have you ever heard the song?" And there's blah blah by Imagine Dragons. The audio is killing that. It's probably copyrighted or something, so they won't tell me the title. I have heard many songs by Imagine Dragons, but I'm not sure which one. But it's for Gabriel.
Demons.
Okay, yes, I have heard that.
And do you think it's a perfect song?
It does work very well for him. I do have certain songs that, while I don't work to music, I do have certain songs that will remind me of characters or relationships. But that would be a good one. I hadn't thought of it for him, but it would be a good one.
Yeah. So my last question for the day. I'm not sure. I think I'm echoing.
Yeah, something. It was fine before.
You just suddenly. Your character voices are always so strong. Is that something that happens naturally while writing, or do you work in the pre-writing stage to create a dictionary?
I do most of it in the pre-writing stage. So I do a lot of character work beforehand. Sometimes, though, for a minor character, they get their backstory as I'm writing, because I might come up with what I thought would be a very minor character, but as I start writing, I start thinking of backstory, and they end up becoming a much larger one. But I certainly do believe in doing a fair bit of pre-writing, especially with characters, especially the main character. The narrator, I need so much backstory work for them. I know, again, in City of the Lost, one of the things that I did in an early rewrite, I got part way into it, and the main male character, the sheriff, was boring. He was so boring. So I went back and completely redid and gave him a far better backstory. And once I had his backstory, his character came to life, and I could rewrite him properly then.
Oh, thank you. I'm echoing. Virginia, take over and do it. Because anyone to get confused. So there's one last comment that I'll just read out for you. All your series are activating, and I love them all. Thank you. Will you be continuing, Nadia?
Will I be continuing, Nadia? Was that it?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I have a Nadia novella that is being formatted right now for ebook. So once that's back in probably a month, I would guess, that will be.
Hi, Sulo.
Hello.
So guys, different voice here. I'm president of the Pixel Project, and I'm here to wrap up. Sulo is echoing. Am I echoing, guys?
Kind of.
Yeah, I think we're just all echoing now.
Okay, so on the screen, and I will read out wrap up.
There you go.
Okay. As mentioned earlier, Kelley has generously donated a signed personalized copy of the limited edition of Raisin, and a signed and personalized limited edition of Sugar. And both of them are leather bound with a full color dust jacket and features 6 full color illustrations by Xavier Dalmari, including 2 which are not limited edition, as well as full color. And Kelley's holding it.
There we go. I am. Oh, there's Driven. Look, interior art. See?
And Driven has been snapped up. So the only one left is Raisin. So check out. Put yourself on the main screen and share the slide. Just a second.
I'm trying to get the. There you go. Can we see that?
No, we can't.
Let me try this again. Oh, gee. Sorry, this is. Stop. Not sure why it's not screen sharing.
Oh dear.
Got the slide. But it's not sharing.
Okay. So let me try. Thank you guys for your patience. We are is up. Okay, let me see. Okay, there we go. All right, so we have the slide up, and you can go check out and more. There are more notes of authors at Indiegogo, and link is on the screen. And you can go to only have PayPal. You can go to Resume. It's on the site as well. And you can find out more about these at is.gd/read for pixels. And if you want to find out more about women and girls about it, visit the Pixel Project website at www.pixelproject.net. All right. So low to wrap up.
Hello. Sorry. All right. Thank you, everyone. Today. And thank you, Kelley. For just so incredibly supportive of us. We hope to work with you a lot more in the future. More than that, just really nice books that are coming out. So thank you again. And everyone, thank you. Have a good night wherever you are in the world.
Thank you. I just want to quickly say, I forgot.